Al-Hassan, the Taliban are promising that they are a different kind of Taliban. What is their political philosophy? Are they socialist? Are they capitalist? Are they constitutional? Are they Sharia? What's the Taliban?
The Taliban falls under what we call Islamists, as it has been labeled by the West. But then we need to go back to what constitutes an Islamic state itself. And this takes us backwards into the early days of Islam after the death of the Prophet. Because when he was alive, the Prophet was both the lawgiver, the judge, and aside from that, he's a messenger of God. So in his absence, there was a vacuum. So there was a need to fill that vacuum. And that itself started the origin of sectarianism in Islam. There were two schools of thought. One side felt that succession should come from the bloodline of the Prophet. And they became what we call Shias of today.
Oh, so that succession should come from the bloodline
of the Prophet.
So that the Prophet's son.
No, he had no son.
He had no son, he had daughters.
His children, most of them died in his lifetime. He was only one left after him.
Most of the Prophet's children died before him.
Yeah. So left was his daughter, Nana Fatima.
Fatima.
And she was married to his cousin.
Did you say Nana Fatima?
Yeah.
Nana
Fatima.
That was her name?
I think that's the title, but her name is Fatima.
Okay.
So, but she married the Prophet's cousin, who is Ali. So they felt Ali should be the right successor. And then those are the school and those who became the Shias of today.
The Shia Muslims
of today.
They are the majority, isn't it?
No, they are the minority.
Okay.
The Sunnis are the majority.
The Sunni is the majority. Okay.
But those who felt that it should be an elective office became the Sunnis of today. So after the demise of the Prophet,
who is the Ahmadiyya?
Ahmadiyya is just a sect that emerged, I think, in British India in the 19th century.
Okay, that's recent.
Yeah, that's recent. So, out of this confrontation, the Sunnis being majority had their way. There was a consultation among the key leading companions of the Prophet, and his closest friend, Abu Bakr, became the first Khalif. The word Khalifa itself means successor. But in this context, the Khalif was a successor of his political, moral, and social authority, not his religious authority. Because the Quran itself defines the Prophet as a seal of prophethood, Khatimin Nabiyyin. So after the death of Abu Bakr, we had Umar, we had Usman, and we had Ali. But within the period of Usman and Ali, there was a series of issues here and there. So Usman was assassinated.
Okay, so the Taliban will be practicing a theocracy. Is that where you're taking us?
What I'm trying to highlight is that initially the office was supposed to be elective. After the four Khalifs, we call them the Khulafa Rashidun, the rightly guided Khalif, it became a dynasty. So it means what constitutes an Islamic state or Islamic governance is very, very fluid. For example, let me cite 3 countries claiming to be Islamic state, and you see the difference in the system of governance. One is Pakistan. Pakistan itself was carved out of India based on religious identity that the Muslims felt were a minority in India. And it is called the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. But Pakistan is a democracy.
A democracy, universal adult suffrage, multi-party, plural media.
Yeah.
Really?
But just
no Sharia?
There's a bit of Islamic influence there's a Sharia court that deals with issues that, for example, laws must be scrutinized to ensure that it does not flout Islamic laws.
Okay.
But it's largely a democracy.
All right.
Iran also claims to be an Islamic republic, an Islamic state. Iran is a theocracy with some element of democracy whereby you have elective offices and the religious offices. But then the religious offices dwarfs the political office in terms of power distribution. And then we have Saudi Arabia, which houses the 2 holy mosques, Mecca and Medina. It's a kingdom, a monarchy. It claims to be an Islamic state. So you get to see the fluidity of what constitutes Islamic state and what does not constitute Islamic state.
That's complicated, but you have studied the Taliban. Which of these 3 will they resemble?
The Taliban will be a theocracy. But then Taliban...
That's very dangerous.
But Taliban's, ideology was born in India. It's a reaction to the prior to the British advent in India, the Muslims were dominant force, the Mughal Empire. So there was a series of confrontations between the Mughal Empire and the British Raj. So the Mughal Empire was absorbed into British colonial India. So there was this need to study what really caused the decay that led to the collapse of the Mughal Empire or the Muslim dominance in India. So one of the school of thought that emerged is the Deoband, Darul Uloom Deobandi, which Taliban is associated with. It's a branch of Hanafi school of thought, which is a Sunni, one of the four righteous and school of thought of Sunni Islam. So therefore, there was adoption of Western culture, Western ideas that really weakened the foundation of the Muslim society, that made it possible for the Indian, for the British or the Westerners to really absorb or vanquish. So from onset, the idea eschews anything Western.
Mm-hmm.
And then
the Taliban philosophy eschews anything Western.
The school of thought where they originated from eschews everything Western.
Including something like what?
For example,
democracy?
Democracy.
Women voting?
Mingling of women voting. But then,
women leading political institutions like parliament and all that?
Of course.
Does the Taliban envisage a legislative assembly?
Well, they had, even Assad now, that's one of the problems they are facing Assad at the moment. Taliban has 3 centers of power Assad now. The commanders on the ground are present in Afghanistan. The political office is now in Doha. But the core leadership itself is in Pakistan, the Quetta Shura. And that is where all instructions must come from. Because power, both political, military and economic power, lies with the Amir al-Mu'minin, commander of the faithful.
So are the Taliban just concerned about regulating the livelihood of people to bring them in conformity with some idealist philosophy? Or they are interested in developing a country, or both?
Their idea is to develop a country, but they believe the country must be governed and developed according to what they perceive to be Islamic law. And then, in their understanding...
Let me tell my people that I have 5 more minutes with him. His phone number has still not come up on the screen so people can see it. Al-Hassan Bello's phone number is 054-104-5768 for those who want to contact him directly, and then you know the story already. So put that on the phone for on the TV for a minute. Okay.
So in their understanding of Islamic law, be more classical, more Puritan. And then I don't foresee Taliban conducting elections.
You don't see Taliban conducting elections?
In Afghanistan, no.
So they're going to rule forever?
Probably, if they could mirror or make a compromise, they would prefer to adopt the Iranian system.
Which is the theocracy?
Well, Iran is not an absolute theocracy.
That's what they have Ayatollah.
You have the president who is elected. You have the parliament, the Majlis, which is elected. But then, to counter the power of the elected parliament, you have the Guardian Council, which is made up of 4 Islamic jurists. They must peruse and scrutinize every law that comes from parliament to ensure that it's in accordance with Islamic law. And then, in Iran, for example, final authority lies with the Ayatollah and not the president. So Taliban would rather prefer that system than the total form of democracy where you have universal suffrage. But then restricting women from going to school or working actually stems from culture, not Islam itself. Because there's a saying of the Prophet when he said, "Talabul ilmi faridatun ala kulli muslim wal muslimat."
Say that again.
Talabul ilmi faridatun ala kulli muslim wal muslimat. Seeking knowledge is compulsory upon any Muslim, both male and female. So you could see that even in the Taliban's understanding of Islam, it has an element of the Pashtun culture. And most of the early founders of the Taliban movement were raised in rural Afghanistan, and some grew up in the refugee camps in Pakistan as a result of the Soviet invasion. So their idea is quite Puritan and classical. But then the current face of Taliban, for example, the guy over here, one of their spokesmen, Mullah Muhammad Naim Wardak, is a PhD holder. And then Suhail Shaheen has a master's in political science. But how these people will be able to change the entire outlook of the Taliban itself is what...
Could they have a propensity for corruption?
Well, it's a human institution. And one of the reasons why the first successor to Mullah Omar, who is the founder of Taliban, Mullah Akhtar Mansour, had issues in asserting his authority was that some people felt he wasn't morally upright. He was involved in the drug opium trade to finance the Taliban's war. That's how come after his death, his assassination by the US, rather than appointing someone from military background to take the lead, they chose Haibatullah Akhundzada, who is actually from the religious wing of Taliban, because he used to issue the fatwas or religious edict of Mullah Omar when the founder of Taliban himself was alive.
Wow, that's very interesting. So, but now Pakistanis are running away. That's the final part. Pakistanis are running away.
The Afghanis, rather.
The Afghans are running away. They are joining the airplane, and they want to go to America. Why are they leaving? Why are they afraid of why are they afraid of Taliban?
It's a memory of the brutal 6 years of the Taliban from 1996 to 2001. In that period, a lot of violations of human rights took place. Girls were prevented from going to school. Women were denied the right to work. The right of minority wasn't respected. The Shias, their freedom were curtailed. The Tajikis. Afghanistan is actually a multi-ethnic society. Just that the Pashtuns happen to be dominant. The bulk of the Taliban movement, Taliban is actually dominated by the Pashtuns. So if you look at the current issue in the Panjshir Valley, the resistance is coming from the Tajikis, who have been historically suppressed by successive Afghan government before the Taliban itself.
That's interesting. So, okay, but they said that they will not be doing the same thing that the old Taliban did. Are there personalities that are in the old one that are also in this one?
Of course, bulk of the personalities are from the old one. The founder himself, the current leader, Mullah Haibatullah Akhundzada, was a close friend of Mullah Umar, the Taliban founder. He used to issue his religious edict. So meaning for every flaws that happened under the regime of Mullah Umar, in the name of Islam, the guy has a share of responsibility. The current head of their political office in Doha, Mullah Barada, was actually the number 2 of Mullah Umar when he was alive and in office. So they also have a share of the blame. That's why I'm saying that the current face they portray are the educated ones like these ones, Mullah Naim Wardak and Mullah Suhail Shaheen. But as to how these people can be able to regulate, moderate, or guide the decisions and policies of the Taliban becomes an unknown question. And then moreover, the Taliban is not a single entity as it portrays itself to be. Because one of its key partners, the Haqqani network, is actually not part of the Taliban. They're only in alliance. That's why when Mullah Haibatullah...
And that alliance is unbroken? Still
it has been unbroken.
Okay.
Because their interests...
But that's a threat.
Because their interests, what do you call it, converge. So the bigger question is, what happens when the interest diverges? So
but Al-Qaeda interest is believed by the West to be a terrorist threat.
The West made a simple mistake in the first instance of attacking Afghanistan. They should have distinguished between the Taliban objective and the Al-Qaeda's objective. Al-Qaeda has transnational jihadist goal, which stretches across all Muslim land, Islamic land. But for the Taliban, their goal has always been very simple, to govern Afghanistan. So, but then it was also the issues of finances that pushed Taliban under the fold of, because there was a time where...
Al-Qaeda was richer than Taliban?
Yeah, Osama bin Laden himself was a billionaire.
Okay.
And he could source funds from the Arabian Gulf. So there was this belief that there was a time even when Taliban required just a single pickup to embark on patrol in Kabul, he offers 10.
Okay, I'll leave it there. That's interesting. We'll certainly continue with this one.